Hey, ladies, welcome back to the Purity is Precious podcast. I'm Precious Joy, the founder of Purity is Precious. And today we're going to be talking along the topics of tears of uncertainty. Once again, that's tears of uncertainty. I think it's very important to discuss this topic mainly because a lot of times we as women have these different array of emotions or have these different feelings that we really don't know what to do with them, what they mean, why they are even here, what is it about them that is necessary. And so we have moments where we have tears of uncertainty where we don't know exactly what it is that they represent and what they present. And so for this particular podcast episode, I wanted to talk about that mainly because just last weekend, I will say, yeah, just last weekend, I had a moment where I actually experienced that myself. And so I was in my quiet time with God. And as I was talking to God and spending time with Him, I'm having these utterances of different emotions that was constantly coming up and steady making themselves be known. And so if I'll be honest, in that moment, I could definitely verbalize and understand what those emotions was connected to. But the biggest thing that I knew that those emotions were was uncertainty, uncertain of where my future was heading, uncertain of what I could do to properly heal every single area that is broken and wounded, uncertain in regards to why these certain emotions and feelings keep coming back and representing themselves when to me it seemed like I was doing what was necessary to be done to make sure that I healed them. And so I remember sitting in my quiet time with God and I said to him, I said, I don't understand why I keep having these tears of uncertainty. And so for me, I think that it's very important for us as women to understand that tears of uncertainty comes because they are to help usher us into another realm and another area of growth, of wealth, of abundance, of more. And yet, for us to get to that space and for us to get to the place of, that abundant, that expansion or whatnot, we have to be able to process, to understand, to embrace, and to accept moments of having tears of uncertainty. And so I think it's very important for us to talk on this topic today, mainly because even for me personally, as you all know, in the Purity is Precious podcast segments, we've now branched upon the Tell Your Truth segments. And so what I've done is I've gotten multiple women that have come on set to my podcast episodes and they are literally sharing their truth. They're literally telling their stories. They're literally cracking open parts of their heart or whatnot that they never would have ever shared prior to, or they have kept hidden for so long or whatnot. And so it's been a journey going through this. And, I'll be honest, last week I released the first episode of Tell Your Truth, but deep down inside, I felt like that was my most safest episode to release on this topic. And so these women have literally came to bring the truth, because what it is that I've created an environment where they feel safe to be able to do so. They don't feel judged, they don't feel condemned, they feel like they can actually come and share their stories and it not be used against them. And that's very important. And that is the main goal and the objective, is to be able to become one with your truth, because until you become one with your truth, then you can't process, you can't properly heal, and you won't grow and learn from the experience. And so what I've started to notice is that these women are some strong women, and it has literally, their stories has literally rocked me to even my core. And I knew that I had a story to tell and that I had wrote this book that was very vivid and detailed or whatnot. And like, I have no shame about anything that I've done or that I've experienced or whatnot. But to hear other women's stories is so empowering and is so intriguing to the fact that it makes you begin to identify with areas. And what I've started to learn is that through hearing their different stories, we are all more connected than what I would normally have thought we were, than what women think that we are. But so many of us have experiences. So many of us have stories that are so connected to each other in more ways than one. And so it's like if we would stop looking at each other through judging or through trying to act like somebody else's story is worse than ours, or I would never have done that, then I think that we will become more stronger as a group and as a union of women to be able to have each other to lean on and to support and to help each other grow through certain processes of our lives. And so, as I've been going through this phase or whatnot with the Tell Your Truth segment of this podcast season, it has been very intriguing and touching to me because I started to notice that a lot of the women that shared their stories, they were either fighting back tears when they went into such a deep place. And it was so interesting to see because of the fact that it shows me how our level of strength has always been and how we um, sometimes we fight against the possibility of becoming vulnerable versus allowing vulnerability to fully be our way of healing and transparency. And so, as we went through these phases and as I did these different episodes, I was able to see how my lack of vulnerability in certain areas in my life or whatnot has stifled or prolonged my level of healing, my growth, my maturity. And so it's very important that we start to that as we go through the next phases and as I begin to release some of the more episodes over the weeks or whatnot, that's going to be more in depth in regards to some experiences that you all allow for yourselves to be transparent and vulnerable as you hear their stories. So I wanted to talk to you all about that mainly because I felt like it was very important to talk about this before the following episodes released. Because at first I was thinking I'm going to edit some of the episodes, but now I'm like, not necessarily needs to be edited because women need to know the stories of others. Women need to know the hardships of others. Women need to know that we are stronger together versus, apart. And women need to know that division does not bring us together, it only separates us. And if we don't honor the value of our fellow sisters, then we would never be able to soar into our greatest capacity as a dominant force of women. And so, especially in the African American community, let's just be real, we need to start to actually come together and understand each other and begin to develop a level of love and honor for each other. And so, I think that is very important for us to dig into those topics or whatnot. And so, what I want you to do is to be aware of your level and of your experiences with tears of uncertainty. Because as you begin to grow and as you begin to understand and as you begin to come more aware of your tears of uncertainty, then you open up the door for revelation to come, wisdom, understanding, abundance, um, guidance, direction. As you begin to actually acknowledge, your tears of uncertainty at some point in time and not suppress them, then you begin to get more revelation and understanding in regards to what you should be doing, what direction to go in, how to move, how to flow, how to operate, and things of that nature. And so I want to kind of like give a little bit of an understanding of what tears of uncertainty is and what they are. Tears of uncertainty could be something similar in regards to like how I'm going to give you a couple examples of the podcast episodes that's going to be released soon. I have someone that's going to be sharing her experience with being date raped, and I have someone that's going to share her experience of being extremely promiscuous. I have someone that's going to share their experience of being racially profiled in the workplace. I have someone that's going to share their experience of being abused in their household as a child. There are so many different avenues to like what the different women have encountered and have experienced. And how they had to process it. And let's just be 100%. A lot of these women went completely deep and shared some things or whatnot. And you will see if you watch the YouTube videos of these episodes, you would literally see how they had to sit in that moment and process. And I think that that was what was so beautiful. There were moments in the episode or in the podcast episodes that I personally would not interrupt or interject because I saw how that particular woman had to literally sit in that space again and relive that moment as she shared her story. And so reliving that moment as you share your story actually brings a level of healing and sobriety to your emotional state because now you know it no longer have as strong of an effect over you because the more you can actually relive an experience and you can talk through it and you can actually allow yourself to process it, the more you can actually get to a place of healing and wholeness within. And so there were moments where I wanted to interject and I wanted to say, um, just throw a little curveball in there and try to, divert the conversation to an extent. And then there were moments where God was like, no, don't say nothing. And so I would not interject because that I understand that that needed to be seen, that needed to be shown, that nobody just gets over a situation, regardless of how long it had occurred or how long it had happened, if you don't allow for yourself to sit in those feelings and allow for yourself to process those emotions. And so your tears of uncertainty could be something totally different. Your tears of uncertainty could be based upon a career move. Your tears of uncertainty could be based upon whether or not you should release a book. And your tears of uncertainty could be based upon whether or not you should tell your story, your truth about an experience, about an encounter. Your tears of uncertainty could be in regards to some decisions that you made that you feel like you're still paying for and that you're still suffering from. And if I'll be honest with you, there are things in my life that I feel like I'm still paying for from decisions from years ago. And that's not an easy feeling. And I know that for me personally, I'm not still paying for it at all, but it's just how I feel. I know that at the end of the day, God does not hold things over our head or whatnot. That's us that's doing it to ourselves. And so there are certain things that I go through and that I struggle with that I feel like I'm still paying for this, even though this happened 6, 7 years ago. And so, those for me personally, that has been what my tears of uncertainty has been for me. It's been how I feel that I'm still paying for things from years ago. It's been that I'm not sure if we're headed in the right direction in regards to purity is precious. It's been different levels of tears of uncertainty for me. But if I would be 100% honest, even in that, even in the midst of my tears of uncertainty, and even in the midst of me not knowing what direction or what we're doing or where we're heading for purity is precious, God still gives me insight and revelation and ideas about other things to do with the brand. And so even now, there is something else that he has definitely been sharing with me and showed me. And I see the benefit and the value of it. And I see how what it is that he's given me has not necessarily been done, been nurtured or matured in a certain arena of women. And so I went from literally crying tears of uncertainty on, I want to say, either Friday or Saturday this past weekend to understanding, to getting some revelation in regards to where God wants me to go, or like another extension of purity is precious. And then I went from doing this massive cleaning in my house, in my room, and things of that nature. And because it's like, you know how they say that when your mind is cluttered, all of your stuff around you is cluttered. You know, it's just everything around you gets out of hand and gets orderly, which is very true. Like when your mind has too much going on in it, or when it's like racing and it's thinking about so many different things or whatnot, then you tend to, it manifests itself externally. And so, based upon where I was, I've had this moment of just being in complete discomfort, a little bit of confusion, and just definitely uncertainty. And I believe that when I got into a place where I allowed myself to really be quiet, and even though I really do spend time with God consistently. There are moments where I don't feel like it was beneficial. I didn't get what I needed or whatnot, or I couldn't tap into the way that I wanted to because my mind was wandering so much. And, you know, I'd be trying to call my mind in and say, man, I command you to focus on God. I command you to focus on the goodness of God, his love, his stature, his beauty. I bring my mind in, but the reality is that sometimes we still wonder. My mind still wonders. It'll come in for a moment, but then it wonders, and it's wondering because it's uncertain, because I'm uncertain with my directions, with where I'm heading, with what I should be doing, with where I should be going. And so one of the things that I've discovered is that over this past weekend, as I saturated myself and as I took time to allow for myself to sit and to dwell in that feeling and allow for those tears to come, I opened up the door for more revelation to come from, for that download of revelation to come. And I allowed for myself to be open to the possibilities and to the potentials of. And so, if I will be even more honest with you all, there are moments where I'm like, I really don't understand why God gives me other things and gives me revelation for other things concerning Pip. And be simply because there are moments where I'm like, we ain't even got Pip off the ground good yet. Like, how are we adding this? And how is it that you want me to look at that and to consider this or whatnot? But it's like, it's just the process of being able to trust and to know that uh, that everything works together for your good, that faith without works is dead, and that as you begin to center yourself and position yourself, regardless of what things look like, regardless of how things may feel, regardless of what things are um, panning out to be, if you just allow for you present in the moment, regardless of what you know currently in that particular time and space, then you can start to open up yourself to really hear the voice of God in regards to the direction, in regards to the movement, and in regards to how to process those tears of uncertainty. And so I wanted to leave this with you all, especially because for me, I think it's extremely important that as you begin to look at these future podcast episodes of these beautiful young ladies that's going to be sharing their stories, that's going to be telling their truths, that's going to be opening up their hearts and unveiling themselves in ways that they've never done before on a public platform. I want you to be mindful of the fact that none of this is easy for them. None of this has come, you know, as none of this has come without any form of resistance for them. And they share that in their stories. They share that in their stories in regards to how they felt so ashamed, how they did not tell anyone, how they discovered that that the healing was in their ability to vocalize, their ability to tell their truth, even in aspects where it was deemed as not favorable to tell their truth. And so over the course of weeks, I will definitely be sharing some things about myself and some things that has occurred and some things that I've done and that I witnessed and experienced. And you'll actually hear it in the podcast episodes because I share things about me as well. And it's like, it's so transformational and it's so transforming to the fact that I really wanted to create a space where women can actually come and have these heartfelt conversations and yet be able to have those conversations without any shame, condemnation, or fear of doing so. And so I just want to honor other women in that way. Honor women by letting them know that their voice is valuable, their voice has purpose, their voice is needed, their voice can help free another young lady, another woman. Their voice is a voice that is governed for influence. That's extremely important that each woman understands that because as women, we cannot move forward, we cannot grow, we cannot mature if we're not going to confront our pains, if we're not going to confront our truth, and if we are not going to be okay with having tears of uncertainty that rises up from time to time. And so that's what I want to leave you all with today. And I am super excited because I know that as you begin to identify and understand more about why you are experiencing um, moments of having tears of uncertainty, as you begin to understand that they don't come to work against you, they actually work for you, as you begin to understand that your tears of uncertainty has massive amount of value to them. I believe that you would definitely begin to move mountains in your life. You would definitely begin to see the value in your story, the parts of you that you cringe to look at, the parts of you that you cringe to see, the parts of you that you think is not um, valuable. You will begin to see that indeed it is. And indeed, if necessary. And so I am on a mission, and my mission is to ensure that every woman has an opportunity to tell her truth. Every woman has an opportunity to be okay with sitting in spaces of uncertainty, in spaces that deem uncomfortable, but spaces that ushers them into complete healing and emotional wellness within. I am committed to that in this phase of my life. And as I always talk about, with Purity is Precious, as I grew and matured myself with the brand, I started to realize that Purity is Precious is not just a sexual thing, but it is also mentally and emotionally. Purity is a mental and emotional state as well. And if those two things are off, then one will be more prone to engage in sexual acts and deeds and experiences that will tear away at their value and internal wholeness within. And so, as we begin to understand more about the importance of valuing our minds, our hearts, and our emotions, then we can sustain purity as well rounded individuals and as well rounded women. And so that's my ultimate, that's my spiel for today, y'all. And so I am grateful for this moment and for this opportunity just to be able to know that when you hear these stories from the other young ladies that's going to come in the weeks to come, you're going to see how God can use their stories to heal you. So be open to seeing yourselves in their lives, be open to honoring them for having the courage to be able to tell their truth and to be able to speak up and to be able to be processed with their truth. It's a difference to be able to know your truth and to tell your truth, but it's a totally difference to be processed with it, to be okay with becoming one with it. And it's not until we're okay with becoming one with it that we start to move into a whole nother realm and a whole nother level of what true queens look like. All right, you all. Love y'all, and I will see you all very, very soon.